Hey, we're still looking at cookie clickers, and now we're going to focus on making our mouse click, and we're going to focus on, yes, collisions in this game. In other words, is my mouse clicker interacting with the objects on the screen? And that's all really this all has to be. And then there's timers, which will trigger, the cookies per second. If I make something called pickles per second or cookies per second, I need a timer to determine when those cookies need to click. So those are the things we're going to be looking at in this one. Where I left off was our basic screen right here. In fact, I didn't put the word farms over here, which is like how many farms do I own and how much do they cost, so we'll have to add that later too. But we're going to come down here to the frame, and we're going to say, okay, you know what else we need is we need to set the mouse click handler. So what do we do when the person clicks the mouse? So we'll call that click because that's what it sounds like. And the other thing that we have to do is we have to make a timer. That one we do a little bit different. Timer equals. You could call this anything you want, but we'll just say timer equals. And so before we created a frame using simple GUI create frame. So to do a timer, we do create timer. It's always this time of the year that I create these timers in my tutorials, and I realize that I should have done this in class because timers can be really handy. So is this too similar? I'm going to call, if somebody clicks the mouse, it's a click, and if my timer ticks, it's a tick, right? Like a ticking of a second hand. And timers need one other thing, which is how often do we want the timer to trigger? And it's done in milliseconds, so 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. Because I'm creating a program that says cookies per second or pickles per second, I figure I want my timer to tick every second I want it to do something. If I wanted to, every half a second do something, I could say 500 there. I'll stick for 1 second. That seems to work well. So we have two new functions we have to create. I've started yawning. We're quite early today, and so I apologize. I'll explain that in just a second. I'm just going to type in my two functions before I forget. I don't think the tick means anything, so it's just going to be that. Okay, so we're gonna deal with the tick later on, but the click is the most important one. So when I'm moving my mouse around on the screen, what's happening is that the computer, right, the basic operating system of the computer, is keeping track of where my mouse is located, and then it's drawing the mouse, cursor. It's almost like saying the operating system has its own draw command, and it's refreshing the screen and drawing a mouse as I move it. So it knows at all time where the position of the mouse is. It knows that it's a certain amount over and a certain amount up and down. We're going to call that pause. And what we're saying here is we're basically just saying, hey, computer, you know where the mouse is positioned right now, so go ahead and bring that into our thing. Click will happen when somebody clicks the mouse. So in other words, at the moment I click the mouse, kabooey, where is my mouse positioned on the screen? That's captured into this. What that is it's basically a list. Pause is a list, except it's not called a list anymore. It's called a tuple. And the reason we call it a tuple, well, the difference between a tuple and a list is a tuple can't be changed. We cannot alter the position of the mouse. We can't say, boom, I want the mouse to become 1,000, 1,000, it's way down here. You can move the mouse and do that, but you can't just set it and have the mouse jump around, or people wouldn't be able to control their computers. So a tuple is like a list, except that we can't change it, we can only read it. So it's like a read-only list. That's just important. The the list part of that is important, because if I say pos 0, in fact, I'll put this in a comment. Of course, comments you don't have to type, but they're just here for reminder. This is the mouse X position. So if I ever refer to pos 0, I'm talking about the mouse's X position. And if I refer to pos 1, that is the mouse Y position. And that's the only things we need to use pos for. It's not going to get more complicated than that. It's just pos with a 0 inside square brackets, pos with a 1 inside square brackets. That is how we keep track of our position. Okay, so what do we do with that? Well, what we have to figure out, this is where collisions come in, is we have to figure out, did the person's mouse position, here I am in this game, of course it's not going to work because now my click does nothing. Okay. The person's mouse position, they just clicked, and they clicked right here. In fact, you can see down here, it tells you what the mouse position was. They clicked over here, they clicked over here. We want to do something when they click here, right? And this is a collision, basically. We want an if statement. Is the thing that they just clicked, the place that they clicked, is that something we care about? And to do collisions, it's very similar to what we've done collisions in other tutorials you may have watched or in class. It's a little bit complicated because we need to compare the X position and the Y position to find out if they're somewhere between the positions of the pickle. There's different ways to do this, and sometimes I like to do this by saying, in fact, I probably should still do this. What I like to do first is I kind of like to set up these positions so I know what they are. So in other words, what is my pickle's left position? Where's my pickle's leftmost spot on the screen? The pickle is placed right in the center of the screen so that its height and its width is there. And we know that then it's located 320 divided by 2 is 160. So we know that it's 160, like the left part of the pickle is 160 pixels to the left of the center of the screen. There's different ways we could type that out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, it's your width divided by 2, that's the center of the screen, minus the pickle's width divided by 2. I'm going to do that because if you use a different graphic, I could say 320 divided by 2, or I could just say 160. And for that matter, I could just say, I know what my width is. My width is 800 divided by 2 is 400. 400 minus 160 is 240. So I could do the math, and I could just say, hey, my left position that I'm curious about is 240. But if I change anything, if I want a different graphic for my pickle, if I want my pickle to be a different size, if I want my width of my screen to be a different size, I'd have to redo the math. So I'm going to say it's the width divided by 2 minus the pickle's width divided by 2. And then I'm off and running because now I can say, okay, I get this. My pickle's rightmost position is the width divided by 2 plus the pickle's width divided by 2. And my pickle's top position is the height divided by 2 minus, for height, because we're going up the screen, the pickle's height divided by 2. And the pickle's bottom position is the height divided by 2 plus the pickle's height divided by 2. Okay, so like I said, I'm not doing the math. I'm creating a formula. You could do the math. None of these things are going to change once you are absolutely certain that your pickle is the exact, thing you want. Your screen is the exact thing you want. But I go up here and I say, you know what? I want my width to be 1000 from now on. And so it moves everything over. because it's still in the middle of the screen, and it's still going to work because I made it mine based on math. So if you do change anything, it's great to have this in here. Maybe I'm belaboring that point, which I apologize. So my position of my mouse. I'm curious if my mouse is between the left and the right spot. In Python, we can write this actually simpler than what I often do, because what I could say is I could say, if I wanted to find out if the value x is between 10 and 20, I could say x 10 is less than x, which is less than 20. This means if the number x is between 10 and 20. So I could do the same thing here. I could say if pickle left is less than my mouse position, my x mouse position, which is less than the pickle's right, that means my x position is right between the pickle. That's x. I have to deal with up and down as well. So I could say, and the pickle top is less than my mouse position y value, which is then less than my pickle bottom. So there we go. Just is my mouse position between it left and right? Is my mouse position between it up and down? If so, what happens? Well, what happens is I want pickles. Pickles plus equals 1. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, I need to change my pickle value. So global pickles. So I should be able to play this. I click here, nothing happens. I click here, my pickles go up. But I don't have a number there. So how many pickles do I have? I don't know. So let's go back to our draw command. We want pickles. We don't just want the word pickles, we want a number of pickles. So what we're going to do is we're going to say draw pickles plus, and this is a little bit confusing because like I could say, hey, I want pickles plus pickles. But the only thing that it can draw to the screen is a string value, right? Text is the only thing that will show up as a graphic. So I do this, it's just going to freak out. So I'm just going to say, okay, give me the string value of my pickles. Pickle 0. Perfect. Maybe I want to put a little space in there. Pickle 0. Okay, clicking pickles. Oh, look at that. Anywhere that is on my pickle works. Now, does it work outside my pickle? Does it work over here? So, do you see that? There's a little bit of space because this graphic of the pickle, if I was to just look at this graphic, there's a little black on this side and a little black on this side that counts. Now, you could do some adjustments in your hitbox that we created. This one's more troubling. Look how high I can do this because we imported this as a square that's 320 pixels wide and high. And so it works way down here. So that doesn't really work for me. So really, when I set my pickles left and right, this was a little too far, this pickle thing here. So, I don't want to subtract quite as much as I said. Maybe I want to take 10 pixels off the edge of it. And if I do a minus here to take it 10 off, I have to do a plus here. And if I do a plus here to take 10 off, I have to do a minus here. And the height needs quite a bit of adjustment. The height, really left way too much on there. So let's take off, 50 pixels at least. So then when I play it, I'm over here, oh, do you see that right there? No one's gonna go over here and kind of test me, but so that's pretty good. Now height, I click up here, I get nothing. I'm coming down, right there. So you see, it's still this much blackness that it's thinks is my pickles. So, and then let's try underneath it. Way down here is okay. Right here, I'd say that's at least another 50 pixels, wouldn't you say? So now I'm trying to click, I'm trying to click, I'm trying to click. Right there, which if you think about it, is just above that. And then down here, right about here. So it's up to you how picky you want to be about this. You still have to deal with a square. We're not going to get these edges. If you want to try to create a hitbox that's a circle, you could, but then you're still going to get this. So there's a type of collision called pixel perfect collision, which means it would be able to tell the difference between the pixel color and the black background, and you'd have to click exactly on the pickle. But this is pretty close. I think it's a good enough hitbox for us to use. So, do we want anything else to happen when we click that pickle? We just want the pickles to go up, right? Now, that's a fairly boring game, just clicking on a pickle, and it tells us how many pickles we have. So we got to do something to make it a little bit more interesting. And the idea is I want to sell pickles in order to buy a farm, right? So we need to, in order to do that, we need to create a new thing to click, which is going to be the button, and we actually have to draw some more text on the screen. I mean, we wouldn't have to because we have the button, but I should probably put some things over here. So we're going to draw two more things on the screen. We should say draw text and make farms. And now that you understand this plus string pickles, we're going to say, okay, farms plus the string of how many farms we have. I need to put that somewhere close to my button that says to buy it. My button was 700 over and 300 down, so we'll say like 250 down. We'll say 24 point font, and we'll make it, I don't know, should we make it green again? And then we also have to tell them how many pickles, that farm would cost, so we'll say cost is the string of farm cost. And this we also want 700 down, maybe 275 on a location, also green. You can change this up and make things different colors depending on what you're thinking. So I'm just going to hit play. What do I think about that? That's weird. Oh yeah, because when I said 700 over, that's the center point of it. So I should really move these both back a little bit. In fact, I also think that my cost should be just a little bit smaller than that. So let's try 650. There we go. Something like that is decent, right? You can play and make this look even better if you want. You can also play with, the fonts if you can figure that one out, but I have a hard time with that one for some reason. Okay, so we know our farms. We know our farms have a cost. So notice it said that we had 0 farms and the farm cost 10. So now we have this button, and we want to be able to click the button. So we're still in the click thing. Like basically all collisions are everything interesting is gonna happen here in this click. One other thing before I forget. The PPS, we need to put a number in here too. So we should say plus the string of PPS. And I want to put a space inside there. Okay. So that's gonna become important here in a minute. Okay, so anyway, here's our collision for the pickle. Now we want to do a collision for the buy now button. So button left If you want to make your own buttons, by the way, they probably look better. I had a hard time finding good buttons. Now this part is a little bit weird because this button came in at 400, 400. It had a lot of black space around it, and we are not making a button that's 400, 400. So if I make my pixel width divided by 2, that's still like 200. And my button, I only drew my button to be 100 pixels on the screen. So I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to say I want my, honestly, what I really want it to be is 50. So I'm taking back what I did here and saying, hey, I can adjust it on the fly. That's nice mathematically. The problem is that this button is just really too big and it doesn't work. But I had such a hard time finding buttons that I had to cheat. So if you find a better button, you can do like button width divided by 2 and all that kind of stuff, which would be a lot better for you to do. But on this one, we're just going to have to fudge it a little bit. In fact, it's 50 up and down. It's probably not even 50. It's probably more like 40. Oops, and this should have been a plus anyway. So I'm going to change those last two numbers. Now, I'm going to take a quick peek. How did I do this last time? Because I feel like I did it slightly different. Oh yeah, see, in the other one, I just kind of cheated in my if statement and wrote my if statement a little bit different. And used my button X and button Y. Oh, I did that one a lot better. Ugh. Because what am I doing the middle of the screen for? That's not where my button is. Oh, see, I'm starting to get tired. All right, so sorry, this should have been my button X minus 50. My button X minus 50, because it's not at the middle of the screen. That's only what the pickle is. I don't know what I was thinking there. If you want to pause the video here, this is how I did it last time, if you want to study the difference. But basically, I just said, you know, if my mouse position with a little fudge factor was by my button, and then if my mouse position wasn't with a little fudge factor was by my button. So in this one, I'm putting the fudge factor into this part of it, and the other one, I put it into my if statement. But it comes out like this. If my button left is less than my mouse position, which is less than my button right, and my button top is less than my mouse position 1, which is less than my button bottom. So if that happens, we have a hit. We have clicked the buy now button. Now what happens if we click the buy now button? Yeah, they get a farm, but do they get a farm? They only get a farm if they can afford a farm, right? So if they click there, but now what? So if the number of pickles is greater or equal to the farm cost, then we'll let them buy a farm. So if they click this and they don't have 10 pickles, then we'll just ignore it. And they'll be like, yeah, that's nice. You don't, you know, this is true, but this is false. Now, this is where fun things happen, though, because first of all, you bought a farm. That means your pickles have to go down by the farm cost. So, you know, you can't keep your pickles. You got to turn them in. Second thing that happens is our pickles per second has to go up. Now, I'm going to just say that farm's giving me 1 pickle per second. So I'm going to increase my pickles by 1.0. Could just say 1 if you wanted to. If you start getting into decimals, then you can, do 0.0, but it's up to you. You'll see that that does 1. Later on, one funny thing's going to happen to our numbers because I'm doing decimals, but that's okay. My farms goes up. Yes, I guess we should give them a farm for buying that, so I'll say that. And then, this is the one that you'll have to play around with a little bit, but my farm cost should go up because I want the next one to be more expensive. So here, if I'm in Cookie Clicker, I'm starting to earn quite a bit of cookies, right? Yeah, I can buy a mine. So when I bought a farm, it went from 1,100 to 1,265. I'm going to buy a mine for 12,000. The next one is 13,800. Now, how did it come up with that number? Right, grandma's cost 115, the next time 133, the next time 153. So it's going up by some number, and it's basically creating some sort of hidden formula that determines how much the farm, the cost goes up. So you'll have to think about that. I want my farm cost to go up by, I was thinking something like 10, but not just 10. 10 times, what if it was like the number of farms I have plus 1? And I just add plus 1 because at first they own 0 farms. I want to make sure that the first time goes up by a fair amount instead of just 0. So, so maybe that's something. Let's see. I was playing around with it, and the second time I tried it, I did farms times farms. So I did farms squared plus 1. So then it would go up by more, right? So 10, first of all, because I want that to cost 10 at the beginning, times the square of farms, and then add 1 more just to make it an odd number. Was it times or was it plus right there? Yeah, it was times. Okay, so think about that. You could play around with numbers. Maybe, if you knew how to make cool formulas for numbers, like ask your math teacher what some cool series of numbers are that you could use. There's one that comes to mind. It's called the Fibonacci sequence. You could do some really cool things in here and make the cost go up. So this is going to be my recommendation. But each one probably you want to make different. Like if you were to make mines of pickles or whatever your idea for pickles is, airplanes filled with pickle deliveries and stuff like that. Maybe you would change the formula for each one so that everyone has its own unique way of becoming more and more expensive. I've just changed 4 variables, which means my globals need to change here. I don't just have pickles anymore. I have pickles per second, I have farms, and I have my farm costs. All of those are changing. But because we put those in the draw, we should be able to see that this works right away. So I have 0 pickles, I have 0 pickles per second, I have 0 farms, it costs 10. So now I have a pickle. I want to buy. Ah! Bottom. What in the world was I typing right here? I hope you didn't make that mistake. Okay, buy now. Nothing happens, right? Because I only have 1 pickle. I can't afford that. So I have to get up to, 9. Oh, nothing. Get up to 10. I get up to 10. I click buy now. My farms stay to 0, which seems odd to me. I'm going to have to look into that one. Ha! I see what I did already. It's down here. That was stupid. I am getting bad here. Farms plus equals 1. There we go. We want it to go up by 1. Why don't you pause this I've been going kind of fast here. Here's the entire click in case you need to take a look at it with the new updated globals. This part here is the pickle collision, and this part here is the button collision. All right. going back to see if it works. I get 10 pickles. I click buy now. My pickles go to 0. My pickles per second goes to 1. My farms go to 1. My cost just went up to 30. Now I got to get 30 pickles. Buy it. My farms go to 2. My cost goes up again. My pickles per second goes up. But, it says I make 2 pickles per second. Why is nothing happening? So that's the last part of this, and then you're off to the races. As we need something to happen on our tick, because we say every second we want something to happen. This is actually quite easy. We have some number of pickles, and basically we know that our pickles, every time it ticks, which means every second, our pickles should increase by our pickles per second. Our pickles per second is at 0. Now our pickles per second is 1. Why aren't our pickles going up? Ah, because there's one more thing we need to do. And that's this. The timer exists, but we never started the timer. It's just like having a stopwatch or something. So down here we start our frames, which starts our drawing routines. We should also start our timer. So now, see that how it went to 0.0? Because it knows our pickles per second is 0, so it actually changed it. So 10 pickles, farms cost 10, my pickles per second is 0. I click buy now, my farms go up, and now every second my pickles are going. I find that these seconds are a little bit on the fast side. I don't know. Maybe I'm used to Cookie Clicker, which makes everything slow. Now I can keep on clicking to add more, but every second it will add one by itself. Oh, I can finally buy another farm. Okay, I'm at 2. My farms are getting quite expensive, which is good. We want it to be hard, right? Because people are going to sit here and spam a pickle, and we want them to have to take a while before they can afford something. Eventually, you'll get going fast enough, right? My pickles per second 3. Oh, but my cost is still 180 now. I'm surprising how much that cost is going up. All right, well, that is Pickle Clicker. Imagine, first of all, maybe you want some cool graphics for your farms instead of just some lame old thing here. Um, I would consider this to be like if somebody was to turn this into me and it was exactly what I just created, I'd be like, "Boo, that's really no good." Um, do you want it to be a pickle clicker? Can you think of something else? Can you think of 3 or 5 or 7 um, things that you can buy besides just farms? Like you could reuse the button or make a better button because buy now is kind of silly and I didn't like the shape of this button. Um, or maybe you just make a graphic of a farm and you click the farm graphic in order to buy it instead of a button like this. But imagine 5 different things here, all of them getting different costs, and you click each one, and you see how many pickles you can make. Then go back to Cookie Clicker, take a look at some of the things it does, and come up with some great ideas. And maybe you could do some of these. So that is. This one has upgrades in a store, all sorts of crazy things. So of course, yeah, golden cookies. If you make golden pickles, I'll be very impressed. But that's the idea. I think you can have fun with this and make it something that you could be proud of. So enjoy, and that is Cookie Clicker Clones. See you later.